Everybody, it's Adam from LUCIDPIXUL, and today's talk is going to be about an important lesson that I learned for my life and for my career from being a gamer and working in games. And the game in particular that I want to shine a spotlight on today, for the sake of illustrating my point, of course, because it's not a gaming talk, it's an art talk, is the game World of Warcraft. For several reasons. One is the game has quite a history behind it. It started back in 2004. I started playing in 2005. That's number one. Two is many people can relate to it. It's a very universally enjoyed game, to greater or lesser degree, depending on your personal tastes. But it's a game that has reached out to millions and millions and millions of people. It's a very big deal, okay? So it has seen its share of awesome successes, which it still continues to, and its share of horrible failures, which it also continues to. Okay, it's a little bit of a balance of both. But what I want to explore with you today, with respect to our careers and the lessons we can learn from it, is the decisions that Blizzard made over the years that has had positive or negative impacts on its success, and what you can learn from it. Okay. So what am I talking about? Well, I started back in 2005. I started playing back in 2005, and it was a huge success. Millions and millions of people flocked to the game before it was even ready for it. And I remember back in 2005, back in what was called Vanilla WoW, the servers kept crashing. They couldn't handle the volume. There were, the queue times just to wait to get onto the game could be, hours in certain cases, because they just weren't prepared for that kind of success. And please, no Illidan jokes. Yes, I know I said they weren't prepared. Anyways, because I know you are. So stop it, please. Now, okay? So anyways, I digress. A lot of people who play Legion today, because at the time of this talk, the Legion expansion's out. A lot of people over the last few expansions have always reminisced and expressed many of similar feelings about vanilla World of Warcraft and how it's changed over the years, in many people's opinions, for the worse. Back in the original World of Warcraft, back in the early days, it was incredibly difficult. It was incredibly frustrating. It was incredibly time-consuming. Getting 40-man raids together was a ridiculous endeavor. Getting everybody organized to work together as a team was an incredibly, ridiculously difficult endeavor. Leveling up, just getting to max level, took forever. It took months, up to a year, just to reach max level. If you wanted to travel around, getting gold was incredibly difficult and time-consuming. It was a very prestige type of item to have, because getting that amount of gold to get yourself a cool looking horse or a cool looking skeletal war steed or whatever the case might be was incredibly difficult to do. Questing in dungeons and getting specific achievements just to get into dungeons was incredibly difficult. And I was playing a warlock at the time, and getting the dread steed was a big deal. And getting prepared and all that kind of stuff was a very big deal. But man, was it fun. And one of the things you learn very early on in the game, and something that very much reflected the whole MMO, massive multiplayer online game, feel and ecosystem, was the fact that it was so difficult you couldn't succeed on your own. You depended on your peers to play. You depended on your guild to make any kind of progression, because you just couldn't do it on your own. You needed a tightly organized, very dedicated group of people who could go in and tackle these huge challenges. And these challenges were long, and they were hard. But when an item you were striving to achieve, when you got a chance to win it, after months and months and months of preparing and practice and grouping together, and frustrations and failures and disbanded groups and jerks who decided to play fast ones on everybody to make the whole group disband and start everything over again, and when you finally overcame these things, and let's say a sword that you were trying to get for months finally dropped off of a boss, and you had a chance to roll and win it, your heart beat out of your chest. You got an anxiety attack. You started to freak out and scream. Everybody was like, "Whoa, oh my God, it dropped." Okay? Everything was a big deal back then. Failures and frustrations were intense, but successes were euphoric and exciting and addictive. Okay? And that's what kept you coming back. That's what kept people playing for ridiculously long hours to the expense of their health in many cases. It was just such an incredibly rewarding experience when good things happened. But then something changed. And after several expansions came out, I guess the team at Blizzard started to feel that it catered to a little bit too much of a niche audience. Or maybe their desire for growth got the better of them. Not for ill reasons. I mean, it's a business, right? They were trying to run a business and they were trying to appeal to the largest mass of people they could because they wanted money, right? Because they're a company. But they made certain decisions which you could tell were justified. For instance, the game being as difficult and being as challenging and frustrating as it was catered more and more to a little bit more of a niche audience. Although that niche audience was millions of people, right? It wasn't a small niche, it was a big niche. But they wanted to make that niche bigger. So they started to implement certain things into the game to make it easier. Back in the day, during the early beginnings, if you wanted to get a group or a guild together, you had to earn your place in a guild. You had to grind, and you had to work, and you had to go through dungeons and study how to down different bosses. And when you wanted to get into these big raids, which were up to 40 people, okay, then you had to go into trade chat in one of the towns, in one of the main hubs, like in Orgrimmar, for instance. Because that whatever alliance town, I can't remember what it's called, wasn't really important, right? Horde, that's what's up. Yeah, I'm a geek. Handle it, all right? But you had to go and spend hours in trade chat and wait and call out and ask and get trolled and all this stuff. So finally you get into a group and somebody who's qualified enough to get a group together, and you'd all flock together and practice together, and you'd have celebrity players on your realm, put together these pickup groups or pugs, okay? And they would train everybody, and you'd go in and it would take you hours to get everything together, and then finally get through the trash to get to the boss who might drop something that you're looking for, and then some stupid hunter comes in and throws their pet in and feigns death and wipes the whole raid, and then half of them leave, and then you have to wait another hour to get everybody back, and okay? It drove you nuts. Now, they implemented, a few expansions later, they decided to implement a thing called LFR, or Looking for Raid, which was basically this feature they implemented into the game that allowed you to not have to sit in Orgrimmar for 3 hours, spamming in trade chat trying to find a group to join. You didn't have to join a guild and, practice and train together. You didn't have to do any of these things. You just had to click a button, wait, go and farm for your herbs, or work on your trade skills, or troll people on trade chat if you were so inclined. And if you did, I hate your guts, and die in a fire, please. Okay. And then after 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever the case might be, a pop-up would say your raid is ready, and you'd click on the button, you'd join the raid with a bunch of strangers, and you'd go and do your dungeon. And the content was so dummied down, and as the expression is, nerfed, right? I'm doing a lot of quotes because I know I'm talking to a lot of people who might not know what I'm talking about. They would nerf and dummy down the content, making it very easy to get through it. And within a matter of weeks or months, you had all the cool gear you had been striving for and all these things. So if you compare the difference, in one case, it took you forever to get a group together. You completely depended on your guild and got to know these big raiders extremely well. You got to know them because you all raided quite a bit, and you all got to know all the other people that were part of that same community. You were very connected to your guild. You'd have to go on Ventrilo, an app so you could chat online, voice chat online, so everybody could instruct each other accordingly. You waited and worked and got frustrated and tired, and it was a huge ordeal, and it took forever, and you were lucky if once a month or once every few months if one item dropped. But when that item dropped, holy shit, you were hitting the ceiling and screaming for joy because you worked so hard to get it, versus being handed everything on a silver platter, essentially, and effortlessly getting everything your heart ever desired. It was just handed to you. What happened to the game? What kind of an impact did that have in a game? Well, logically speaking, you'd think, well, hey, if everybody's getting what they want, if somebody walks into a room and hands out free gold and free t-shirts and free Mercedes Benzes to everybody would flock to it. And that's what they did for a couple of months. And then everybody had what they wanted. And then once they had everything they wanted, they all left. Okay? And what happened in World of Warcraft is the subscribers, which are going steadily up, and holding there consistently because people consistently had a goal, a big goal, and they made a lot of friends and they made a lot of connections and all of these things, all in the name of difficulty and struggle and frustration. All of these wonderful things came to life. But as soon as Blizzard decided to give it all away, everybody, the selfish side of people, flocked into the stores, emptied the shelves, and then once they were finished with that, they went off looking for something else. And people started to take the game for granted. And their subscribers just started to take a nosedive. And then a new expansion came out. They tried to get a few other people who would hold on to them for a couple of months, and then they would start to nosedive. And you could see from one expansion to the next, it was just taking this bounce down a staircase. And the original vanilla WoW players kept saying, well, the worst thing you ever brought into World of Warcraft was this LFR thing. Making gold, piece of cake to get. You don't have one mount. It didn't take you a year to get one mount. It took you a week to get 30 mounts that you could ride around and fly around anywhere you wanted to with this. And if that wasn't enough, if you didn't feel like grinding, then you could start paying for them. You could just pay real money to get your mount in game. Okay. They tried as much as possible to hold on to people by giving everything away, by making life too easy for them. And what we all learned, what physical evidence we have in front of us, to the point where Blizzard has actually stopped publishing their subscriber numbers, if that's not a good enough indication of the negative impact of this decision, by taking the challenge away, you might have been giving them all the goodies, but what you took away was the friendship, the camaraderie, the challenge, the euphoria, the stories, the celebrities, all of this stuff, all of these wonderful things that came from hardship, that were born of hardship, were completely destroyed because everything was just given away. And it tells you something about the human psyche. It tells you something about the difficulties that you face in your own life, in your own career, because that's a very common question that you get when you're a professional. How do you overcome all of these difficulties? And of course, as teachers and mentors and guides and life coaches, we try our best to help people overcome their difficulties. But I don't necessarily believe that getting over your difficulties is the answer. Because if somebody came to me and said, Adam, how do I overcome these struggles? How do I get the salary that I'm looking for? How do I get that six-figure salary that I'm running after? How do I get the fame and the glory and just produce all of the most magical art I've ever wanted? How do I get everything I ever dreamed of? If I gave that to them, if I said, well, you want it, here it is. Oh, you want connections, you want a reputation, you want all these things, here you go. It's all yours. Then your joy and your commitment to your career would last about 6 months tops. And by the time you hit that 6-month period, you were really struggling to find excuses to stick around. And what would you do? You'd probably look for another career, or look for ways to expand, or look for ways to move on to other things. You wouldn't stick around. You also wouldn't have a reason to connect, to contact or connect to anybody. You'd have everything you needed. What's the point of reaching out to other people if you've already got everything you need? It's through hardship, it's through difficulty, it's through struggle that we start to realize at a certain point, I can't achieve this on my own. I need the help of other people. And when you reach out to other people, you make friends. Friends like-minded kindred spirits who've been through what you've been through and can relate to what you've been through. So you have something to bitch about. You have something to complain about. You have something to benefit from each other's friendship, from each other's commitment, from each other's companionship. When you struggle and struggle and struggle and struggle and struggle and struggle and then finally achieve something, you never take it for granted. You cherish it. You use it for everything it's worth, and you make huge gains from small little successes. But when people hand you big things without you deserving it, without you working for it, you make very little gains, if anything, and then you discard it and move on to something else and completely take it for granted. Its worth dissipates immediately. When I think about my own mentorship, my online mentorship, when I think about the fact that I find myself in a point right now in my career where I'm completely independent, where I share very valuable things with other people, where I feel like I have a sense of worth. This sense of worth that I have did not start when things started going well for me. It started when I finally realized that for me, true success is not in having everything I want. True success is in knowing what I want. That's the success. It's in having a solid, strong, dedicated, passionate sense of direction in my life. I consider myself a success back in times when I was unemployed, back in times when I was poor as dirt, because I knew I was on the right path. And I knew that without a shadow of a doubt, I knew without any question that come hell or high water, I was going to eventually succeed, whether it took me 2 weeks or whether it took me 20 years. And I knew I had it in me to stick it out. And through that process, I developed integrity, I developed strength, I developed wisdom, I developed technical training, I developed artistry, I developed creativity. Every single time I found myself hitting that frustrating, exhausting, overwhelming brick wall, it reminded me, it taught me that I'm not there yet, that there's more to learn, there's more distance. I have to go further, I have to push harder, I have to learn new things. And then I realized I was diversifying myself too much and I was wasting a lot of my energy and time. So I decided to master and funnel my energy more into a more specific area so I could get more out of a narrower career path. And I grew even faster. And every decision that I made either brought me success or brought me failure, but brought me wisdom, always. And it's that makes me who I am. That's where I find my value. It's not in the fact that when people come to me and they say, "Oh, Adam, you're so good. How do I be like you?" Okay? It has nothing to do with that. People, I find the real bond and the real value I have in the lives of my friends, in the lives of my students, in the lives of the people that I mentor online, is in the fact that my life has sucked just as much as theirs does. And that I've just had more time at it to overcome these things. So I've developed skills and I really truly understand at its core what's needed to overcome these obstacles. So the authenticity of my teaching, the authenticity of my art, the authenticity of my value in other people's lives is in the fact that I'm a fellow sufferer. I'm also in that pickup group, pissed off because that hunter decided to wipe the raid and take off laughing. Okay? I've been through that frustration. I have spent those months and years trying to get those cool pauldrons or that awesome new bow. Okay? I've been there. I've struggled. And life has never, not once in my entire life, have I ever achieved anything without busting my ass to get it. And as such, everything that I have has value, has purpose, and will never be a waste. Everything has ultimate value to me. So if you were to turn to me and ask me the question, "Adam, how do I overcome my struggles?" My answer to you would be, I hope you never do. Because you need them to grow. You need them to find friendship. You need them to find guidance. You need them to find value in your life. But don't spend the rest of your life festering in your own misery, or you're not going to get anywhere either. Okay? Remember that you can't do it on your own. You cannot find true success in your life on your own, ever. Okay? You can find direction on your own, but when you want to get to where you want to get, you need your friends around you. You need the guidance and help from other people when you're stuck. Otherwise, do your business. All right? So, hopefully you enjoyed my art talk. Remember, we have the Brush Sauce Theater with the famous, gorgeous, perfect in every single way Tyler Edlin, which we do about once a month. Tyler and I do it about once a month, and it's a free competition. You can jump in and produce art. It's usually art based on a theme, or it's always art based on a theme, and you get free professional critique. It doesn't cost you a penny, and all that awesome exposure and all those kinds of cool things. So it's, and a wonderful community to boot, right? So feel free to join up. The information's in the description below. Remember that I have a mentorship, an online mentorship, if you're interested in pushing your fantasy art and concept art skills as well. And all the information's below as well. Do take note, however, that I'm only accepting registrations after the holidays, directly after the holidays, okay? Because I'm booked until then. But like I said, you can get all the information in the description below. If this, as the guy online, his tech tip says, if the video sucks, you know which button to press. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. All right? Happy painting, everybody. Take care.